Psychologists have studied childhood brain wiring for decades. One thing is clear. Growing up without social media wired your mind completely differently. Imagine no Instagram, no Snapchat streaks, no pressure to document your birthday, vacation, or lunch, no checking views, no comparing to highlight reels. Just real conversations, real boredom, real silence, and real mistakes that actually disappeared instead of going viral. You weren't building a profile, you were building a personality. And psychology says that changes you more than you think. Stick around to discover the psych patterns proving your offline childhood gave you a hidden superpower. But most get it wrong. First, let's talk about attention. Before constant notifications existed, attention wasn't split into fragments. You weren't switching between conversations and screens every few seconds. When you talked to someone, you looked at them. When you were bored, you stayed bored. And boredom is not a flaw, it's fuel. Research in psychology shows that boredom pushes the brain towards creativity and internal reflection. When there's no constant stimulation, the mind starts generating its own. Many people who grew up before social media spent hours imagining, building, writing, drawing, or simply thinking.
Take Steve Jobs. Long before smartphones became extensions of our hands, he often spoke about the value of boredom. He believed that boredom leads to curiosity, and curiosity leads to everything. That kind of uninterrupted mental space shaped many innovators of that era. When you grew up without constant digital noise, your brain practices deep focus more often. Second, there's the concept of social comparison. Today, comparison is instant and endless. You open an app and immediately see someone richer, fitter, happier, more successful. It's constant exposure. But people who grew up without social media compared themselves mostly to those physically around them, classmates, neighbors, friends. The comparison pool was smaller, more realistic. Psychologist Leon Festinger introduced social comparison theory in the 1950s, long before social media existed. He explained that we evaluate ourselves based on those around us. Now imagine what happens when those around us becomes millions of curated strangers. Growing up offline meant your self-worth was shaped more by direct experiences than digital metrics. No follower counts, no public like counters, no visible popularity score. Your identity formed privately.
Third, there's mistake recovery. If you embarrassed yourself in the 90s or early 2000s, it lived in memory, not on the internet forever. You said something awkward. You wore something weird. You failed publicly. And then it faded. Psychologically, that creates resilience. You learn that mistakes are temporary. They don't define your digital footprint for years. Today, one viral clip can free someone in a single moment. But growing up without that pressure allowed people to experiment socially with less fear of permanent judgment. Fourth, there's face-to-face communication. Before messaging apps replaced conversations, conflict happened in person. Tone mattered. Eye contact mattered. Silence mattered. Communication skills developed through repetition, not through typing and deleting. Many well-known leaders and performers developed their confidence in rooms, not feeds. Oprah Winfrey built her communication power long before social platforms amplified voices. Her emotional intelligence was sharpened in real interviews, real reactions, real-time responses. Growing up offline often meant practicing emotional reading skills daily, noticing subtle expressions, shifts in tone, pauses in conversation.
Fifth, there's privacy. When you grow up without social media, parts of your life belong only to you. Childhood memories weren't archived online. Family moments weren't broadcast. Psychology calls this a stronger sense of psychological ownership, when experiences feel deeply yours because they aren't shared or judged publicly. You didn't grow up thinking, how will this look? You grew up thinking, how does this feel? That difference is subtle but powerful. Sixth, there's the experience of unfiltered time. Long car rides without screens, waiting rooms without scrolling. Even standing in line meant just standing there. That kind of stillness trained patience, and patience affects decision-making. Studies on delayed gratification, like the famous marshmallow experiments by Walter Mischel, show that environments shape how we tolerate waiting and impulse control. When entertainment isn't instantly available, the brain practices delay. It learns to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. That doesn't mean people who grew up without social media are automatically more disciplined. It simply means their nervous system was shaped in a slower rhythm. Seventh, there's identity development. Erik Erikson, a well-known developmental psychologist, described adolescence as a stage of identity formation. Before social media, this identity was tested in smaller circles. You tried different versions of yourself in real life, not in front of an invisible audience. Failure felt local. Growth felt personal. You didn't build a brand. You built preferences, opinions, boundaries. And because there wasn't constant feedback, self-concept relied more on internal reflection than external metrics. But let's be clear. Growing up without social media didn't make someone superior. It didn't make them immune to insecurity or comparison. Every generation has its pressures. The difference is simply this. Their formative years were not shaped by algorithms. They weren't trained early to perform for invisible audiences. They learned social rules face to face. They experienced boredom without escape buttons. They made mistakes that faded naturally.
And now, as adults, many of them carry certain patterns. They value privacy more. They don't feel urgency to post everything. They separate real life from digital life more clearly. They remember what it felt like to exist without documentation. That memory changes perspective. Because once you've known a world without constant comparison, without endless scrolling, without curated identities, you understand something important. Your life doesn't need to be visible to be valid.